sound body, sound mind is the rule of life. I can't. I'm not that great of a person if I don't get my daily dose of exercise or 2 or 3 doses of it. I just love more than anything. It's outside, and I think a lot of that comes from spending the first half of my life in a swimming pool looking at a black line, and then I got a taste of being outside, and that was amazing in itself. But then once I stopped racing and got a real taste of the outside, meaning I got to take it in when I go out instead of thinking about the run that's after this 6-hour bike ride or how I got to recover and, fuel myself to get ready for tomorrow. Now I go out with a camera in my backpack and no plan. And all I'm doing is looking around at everything that's around me. And I think that's why I'm thriving in the mountains, and I can't stand to sit around inside. If it's good or bad weather out, once the sun's up, I'm up. I haven't missed a sunrise in probably 5 or 6 years at least. I don't want to miss the daylight.
Welcome back to the Yogi Triathlete Podcast. We are Jess and BJ, and we're on a mission to create a better world. We are waking up and shaking up the world of endurance sports by shining a light on the depth of meaning behind the lives of our guests and sharing stories of purpose. This life is a rich itinerary, and there are no mistakes. If we pay close attention, I think you'll see that we are never off our path. Today, we share the mic with one of the most accomplished American triathletes in history. Tim DeBoom, USAT and Ironman Hall of Famer, is the last American to win an Ironman World Championship title. His back-to-back wins in 2001 and 2002 took us all to new heights of what may be possible. An athlete his entire life, Tim's professional career spanned from 1995 through 2012, from the age of 24 to his final season of racing at the age of 40. If you're a regular listener, then you know Tim's wife, Nicole. And if you follow Nicole, then perhaps you received her newsletter in late January entitled, "So There's This Guy." Well, we got that newsletter, and we are so excited to hear, as Nicole wrote, that Tim was emerging from his cocoon and putting himself out there into the world. As we read on, we learned that Tim is pulling back the curtain and sharing the things that assisted him in being the best in the world. From his 2 Ironman Triathlon World Championships to a happy, extremely fit 50-year-old, Tim is sharing his tried and true tenets of what he calls a dedicated life. We're fired up to dive in and see where this conversation takes us. Tim DeBoom, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. Excited.
Yeah, so let's dive in. Like, what is a dedicated life? And I guess specifically for this question is like, when was this idea, this project, this newsletter, and whatever it may become, when was this born and sparked your inspiration to bring it into fruition?
Well, I used to write a column for Triathlete Magazine and for Inside Triathlon Magazine, both over for like 2 or 3 years near the end of my career, and I really enjoyed that. I was able to share some of myself, which I'm not really known for doing. I'm pretty quiet usually, but it was fun to share it, and so I've always enjoyed writing. And I enjoyed it throughout my whole life, even in college. I enjoyed writing. But with the magazine a column, it was directed mostly towards triathlon. And that was kind of the subject base. And now, I've just, I was on Instagram. It's the only social media I've ever done. And I started it for myself to just kind of keep a photo journal of everything that I was doing now in my life. And that grew and grew, and people seemed to like what I was putting out there. And so, we got to Steamboat. I was kind of getting antsy to do something, and I had continued to write just for myself over the years, journaling and stuff like that. And so I thought it was time to kind of maybe just start a little newsletter or blog and put it out there and see what the response would be. But a dedicated life it really kind of defines who I am. And it's morphed over the years for sure from athlete to now. In high school, my high school swim team had all these awards at the end of the season, and they had, best performance and, top athlete. And then there was the most dedicated athlete award. And that's the only one I ever cared about because it was that I worked the hardest. I tried the hardest. I was dedicated to being my best, on the team and as an individual swimmer. So that was where kind of the idea came from. After that, I knew that if I dedicated myself to whatever I was doing, it would probably pay off. And so now a dedicated life is just, it's more towards being the best person I can be, which is a father, a husband, a 50-year-old athlete, and just a lover of being outside.
What has what's the reception been so far? I think you put out 3 or 4?
I think I just did my 5th, maybe.
Or 5th one.
And, the reception's been amazing. Cause I've put myself out there in the fact that I actually put my own email in there and interacting with people. And that's kind of what I wanted, was just to share and honestly, like, even help some people, I'm an experimentation of one with myself, but it seems to be working with a lot of, I feel healthier now than I did the last few years I was racing, for sure. Mentally, physically, all the way around, I feel like a better person. And a lot of it's just basic stuff that maybe people don't think about. So I throw that stuff in along with the stories that I'm telling in these emails. I'm putting just some basic information of what I do day to day. And like this last weekend was the oolong tea one. I put a recommendation that I drink a couple cups of oolong tea every day, and I've had about 15, 20 people say, hey, I've already gone out and got my oolong tea. So, I look at that as the positives. More people drink tea, it's probably better.
Well, and I love the well-roundedness of it because, it's life, right? It's not just one thing. Like it's a whole symphony. Life is a whole symphony of departments that we can fine tune and we can tweak to be our best. And whether that's what we're putting into our body, what we're indulging in our mind, how we're spending our time, putting the phone down, picking the phone up, just living with more awareness. And in one of the newsletters, you talked about how you've read a lot about the Tao, Buddhism, and, mindful, enlightened messages. And how are those things informing your day-to-day life?
Those have been an interest of mine for a very long time, and I've always read a lot about that. I remember even in college, I bought my mom a Buddhism book, hoping that she would read it, and she, I don't think she ever did. But it's always been just in the back of my mind more than in the forefront. And now it's become very important to me on a daily basis. I start my mornings with certain readings and things like that. And I mean, for the most part, I try and live by those 3 philosophies, basically, of compassion, moderation, and humility. And when I was racing, that wasn't always easy to do. And now it's much easier. I mean, it's basically a way of life. And having my daughter and my wife, trying to pass that to them as well. My daughter especially, she's the most empathic little girl that I've ever met. And so I don't think I have much work to do there. I think she's gonna teach me more than I could ever pass to her.
Yeah, well, you're a part of her, right? Like you are.
Yeah, she seems to be a little more of Nicole than me, but but we'll see. I get a lot of time with her myself, and those are such special times. There's a huge dynamic difference when she's with Nicole alone, or when she's with me alone, or when she's with us together. She is so smart and bright that she plays to the situation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, the yogis say use everything to your advantage. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it sounds like she's getting skillful at that. And I know you guys traveled to Hawaii in 2019 when you got inducted into the Hall of Fame, Ironman Hall of Fame. And I'm curious to know, what it was like to experience the island through Wilder's eyes, through Wilder's experience. And that's your daughter, Wilder.
Yeah. Well, that was my whole reason for going. That was actually I really wasn't I mean, getting honored and joining the Hall of Fame was amazing, but I hadn't ever gone and watched the race. Even the years I had gone after racing, I would leave the island before the race. I am not a good spectator. It just brings back too much emotion for me. But this gave me a reason to show her a little of what I did she's always asking, Dad, what do you do? What did you do? I know what Mom did, and she sold clothes and, has a podcast, and she's like, what do you do, Dad? Because, it's different. So it was fun to show her, just that aspect of the event. And then a place where I've spent so much of my life and given so much of my life, not only to the Big Island, but to Maui and things like that. And, so that is the way I went into that trip for sure. It was amazing. I mean, I got off the plane, and it was night. We got there in the evening, and, I got a lei for her and put it around her neck and, greeted her with the traditional ways. And it was, the entire trip was very special. She has, since the moment we left, she's asking to go back. And we probably would have already, except for, with everything going on in the world. So, I think being in Steamboat now, more people take that annual warm weather trip every winter. And so that'll probably become part of our life. I know Nicole and Wilder both have a dream of living in a tropical environment at some point for a longer time. It's not quite there for me yet.
Yeah, you got to, and I know you're getting a lot out of your system by really playing in the playground that is Steamboat. We're very familiar with that area, and it's so amazing. And I know you're doing like a lot of backcountry stuff or, always staying fit. And perhaps this is where we segue now into this idea of, always having this level of fitness. That for so long it was your job, like it was a requirement of what you did, and now it's your way of life. Is there more ease about staying as fit as you are, because you're pretty dang fit, now that it's just a part of your dedicated life?
It is, and I mean, my body has been that. I mean, I used to dream in high school as a swimmer and be like, wouldn't it just be great to train all day? I mean, and that's kind of what I morphed into as a triathlete. It was much more about the training than the racing. I actually don't consider myself a love of competition. It wasn't, I didn't actually like the competition. I think I excelled at it and I could harness what I needed to get out of those competitions. But once Wilder was born, that's kind of when I stopped racing, and I lost that competitive drive or maybe I shot all my bullets. Sometimes that's the way I like to say it. I'm just out of ammunition for that kind of thing. But my body, for me, sound body, sound mind is the rule of life. I can't. I'm not that great of a person if I don't get my daily dose of exercise or 2 or 3 doses of it. I just love more than anything, it's outside. And I think a lot of that comes from spending the first half of my life in a swimming pool looking at a black line. And then I got a taste of being outside, and that was amazing in itself. But then once I stopped racing and got a real taste of the outside, meaning I got to take it in when I go out instead of thinking about the run that's after this 6-hour bike ride or how I got to recover and, fuel myself to get ready for tomorrow. Now I go out with a camera in my backpack and no plan. And all I'm doing is looking around at everything that's around me. And I think that's why I'm thriving in the mountains. And I can't stand to sit around inside. If it's good or bad weather out, once the sun's up, I'm up. I haven't missed a sunrise in probably, 5 or 6 years at least. I don't want to miss the daylight. And half the time I'm out in the dark anyway. So Nicole likes to say that I need to be moving. It's like if I get home and there's a couple hours of daylight left and we got nothing to do, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go skate ski for a little while. It's nice out there. And so I need to keep moving. And being outside, I thrive out there.
I love that you're playing the long game, right? The long-term game of the joy and freedom you get from training, and the fitness and racing kind of just came as a part of that. And, I can so relate to just moving the body. And I think for me, it's been because of those moments when I wasn't able to move the body, whether it was injury or whatever came up, and I had an appreciation for it. Is there something in your life, in your past, or something that sparked this to continually move, or do you feel it's just part of your nature, innate nature?
I think it is part of my innate nature. I think as a kid, I had 3 brothers, and we were just always outside, always running around. Parents wouldn't let us sit around inside that often. I think we drove our parents nuts. It was 4 boys in the house, and
totally.
and end up fighting, something like that. So it was like, get out of the house, get out, go mow the lawn. Even mowing lawns, it's like I didn't enjoy it at the time, but I look at it now and I'm like, that was, I'd go swim practice in the morning, mow lawns till noon, have another swim practice, mow lawns all afternoon, go to another swim practice. It was just nonstop. And I'm the first to say my body's probably addicted to the exercise. Like, it's been doing it since I was a child, and I haven't been able to stop. It's changed now. It's not as intense, and it's more being one with the nature and stuff like that. And sharing it with other people now is more important. I still have, solo most of the time, but now I get out with other people, and but it's people like me who are out there, hey, let's slow this down a little bit and enjoy what we're doing instead of crushing to the next peak or something like that. And there's so much more reward now with what I'm doing, mentally and physically. Like, half the time I'm climbing a mountain, and if you're skiing down or mountain biking down, it's you're hooting and hollering the whole way. It's amazing. So you're earning this pure childlike joy every time I'm outside.
That's so interesting. I want to dig into that, what you just said. I think it's really powerful. Like, what you're doing now is more rewarding, because we can, a lot of times, we look on paper, we can, we've been following triathlon for a long time. We were following it when you had your back-to-back wins. And somebody would look and say, well, like, what do you mean? Like, hooting and hollering and taking time to take pictures, like, that's more rewarding. What can be more rewarding than being the world champion? And do you think was it pressure? Was it perfection? Was it, what was it that you feel now is different in those rewards?
I was very hard on myself as an athlete. I wasn't satisfied with anything. The year I got second, I crossed the finish line really mad, and it fueled me for an entire year, and then I come back and I win the thing, and I crossed the finish line, and my mom was the first one to hug me. And then my manager / agent, who was also my best friend at the time, was there to hug me. And he reminds me today that the first thing I said was, next year we really crush them. That was at the finish line of my first win, where I should have been in that moment and overjoyed. And I was already thinking of the next race, the next year. I couldn't let myself sit on that and enjoy it. And it's taken till like now to look back on that and be like, that was awesome. But I wish I would have, been in that moment more. And, and who knows, maybe it would have, I wouldn't have won a second one. And, but now I am in the moment every day, everything I'm doing. That is one of, the thing is, like, be in the moment. Don't get out of this moment. Stay here. If I find myself worrying about anything that's coming up or the future, I just nope, find your center again, get outside, do something. And, I try not to think of the past or the future right now. I'm just being in the moment, because it's just, there's no other way to live. If you're constantly worrying or, living in the past, it just doesn't do you any good. And so Nicole's been really good with me about that. And just once I was done racing, it was very easy to adapt to this lifestyle and just be like, hey, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. My past, newsletter this weekend was like, what's the worst that can happen? And I truly live my life that way. It's like, we build things up in our head to be so bad, and it never turns out that way. Even if it's a bad result, it's never as bad as what you make it out to be. So if you just stay in the moment and enjoy it, it makes life a lot more enjoyable.
That's everything that we try to share with our community is to come back to what's happening now, which is, truly living life. How do you come back to center? Like how is it? And I don't know if you can describe it because it's sort of an intangible thing and everybody's got their own pathway to it. But how do you feel you come back to the appreciation of, the turns you're making on the slopes or the moment right now?
Well, I mean, when I'm outside, and especially where I live, it's impossible not to be in the moment. And so if I'm inside and I'm even having a hint of frustration or something, it's so easy just to step outside and just be like, all right, look where I'm at, look what I'm doing. Or I look at my daughter and the beauty of her and what, she's just so innocent and fun. And, it's so grounding. And I mean, when I'm out and if I'm skiing down a slope, it doesn't matter if it's crappy snow or good snow or, it just doesn't matter. You find the fun in all of it. I mean, 2 days ago, I met this guy. I was at the top of a mountain and I ran into a friend. Ironically, I was up there. Hey, Andy, how you doing? And it was dumping snow. There was a foot of fresh powder on the ground, and we just kind of looked at each other. As like, wow, which way you want to go down? And I mean, we both got to the bottom, and we're like, I don't know if we can top that one. And it's just you get in those moments, and that can fuel you. I mean, you have a moment like that, and that can fuel you for 6 months if it has to. But it just made me, I can't wait to go get the next run. And, to be in the moment now, it's so easy compared to when I was racing, because I would have been thinking about, when's my next workout? What do I got to do? And now, I just don't, I don't live anything like that. It's, hey, I wonder what I'll do tomorrow. How can I top this? And, so it's, I'll say the past 10 years have been better than any years I've ever had, for sure.
Mm. And when you were racing, you had a bit of a rivalry, but I know that you guys also used to train together too sometimes with Pete Reed. And I remember when we were at Vineman. Do you remember the whole mono thing?
The mono thing? Yeah. We were there for that.
Yeah.
we were there for that.
That's funny.
Yeah. Tell our listeners because there was we were hyped up about that, mono, they're going for it.
Yeah. They didn't have a pro race, but one of our sponsors was the Try Dubai had set up this.
Right. Oh my gosh. I remember that.
They're like, hey, and Pete and I both needed a race to get ourselves going. So we're like, yeah, we'll go race. And we thought it was going to be kind of like one of those exhibition. And we called it an exhibition race, and that neither of us were going to kind of take it that seriously. And it turned out to be a little bit of a slugfest. And it was great. It was a lot of fun. It was one of those unique events that I can look back and be proud to be a part of. But yeah, Pete he's I don't get to see him or talk to him much, but I consider him one of my closest friends. And we always, there was that short time when we were battling out to win Kona, and he was struggling, in his side, and then I was struggling on my side. And, we were always there for each other. It was if I wasn't going to win, I was hoping Pete won. And I think he felt the same way. And so those years that we went first and second and traded off a little bit are really special to me. I mean, I still, his son, comes and plays with my daughter. They've hung out together. And, now that we live in Steamboat, Pete's we're coming, and he lives in a great place up in Canada. So we stay in touch. And, we had so many similarities that our first training session was right after my dad passed away, and he called and just to say, hey, sorry to hear about your dad. And after that, we just stayed connected. And that summer after that, we trained together for six weeks in Boulder, and he went off and won his first Kona after that. So that kind of was the starting block of it.
Didn't you guys used to do isn't it weird that I know these things about you? But didn't you guys used to do some crazy out and back 175 mile?
Yeah, the Wiggins ride.
Oh yeah, okay. So I do know this. What is that?
Yeah.
What was the Wiggins ride?
Highway 52 in Boulder.
Oh yeah.
It goes out. It's just one road. It goes all the way out to Wiggins and all the way back. And I honestly, now I can't believe we used to do it because it's so dangerous. I mean, we did it and it was just this 2-lane road that went all the way out to Wiggins, and it was literally like 85 miles out, 87 miles out, something like that. And you hit the gas station in Wiggins, turned around and came back. Now you couldn't pay me to ride that road. I don't know if guys are still doing that ride. Pete and I kind of had heard one legend that like Scott Molina and Kenny Souza had done it. And then that's why we kind of went out and did it a couple times. And now I think there's quite a few guys that have done it.
Yeah, well, back then there was nothing out there.
No, it was almost scary. Like I kept doing it even after I wasn't training with Pete, and I did it by myself. And I'd be out there, I'd leave before the sun came up basically, and I'd kind of be riding, and occasionally I'd have one headphone in and I'd be listening to like the Howard Stern show as I rode out to Wiggins. And I was like, well, that'll keep me company on the way out, and then I can have some music on the way back. But that it's a brilliant ride because you have to make it to the turnaround. I mean, you can turn around anytime, but the mental game is to make it to the turnaround, to that gas station. Because, if you could turn around and still get in a 120, 130 mile ride, but to make it all the way, that was the hardest part of it, was making it to the turnaround, just mentally more than anything else. But it was such a great training day for Kona because you could fit in an 8-hour day with, 9/10 of it on the bike, and then you just get off and do a little run afterwards.
It sounds like and I don't know if you ever rode out here, but the Palomar or Henshaw Loop.
Yeah, I did. I've done that ride.
Yeah.
Pete and I did that ride. We used to come out and do a couple-week training block before Christmas so we could enjoy Christmas. We'd come right before Christmas and we'd ride 4, 5, 6 hours a day for a couple weeks.
Yeah, we've started to integrate that into my training, and it's to your point, it's such a legit ride. Like you gotta make it, and you can bypass Palomar, but there's something about going that far. You gotta go up and Palomar. Down. You gotta go up and down and around, and it can be brutal early on, but once you get used to it, with everything else, it just becomes just part of it.
Is the traffic is it getting worse and worse on that one?
The traffic is pretty brutal going up that first climb, which is actually paved into Ramona. Yeah, it's beautiful, beautiful road. But then it's still desolate way out there. Palomar's pretty desolate for the most part, but Valley Center is pretty steamy.
I just remember the bakery. What's the bakery out there?
Oh, yeah. The Pie Shop.
The Pie Shop.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Pie Shop.
What is it?
That was our mandatory stop.
Yeah, we stopped there.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what I remember more than anything is the bakery.
Julian Pie Company.
Oh yeah, it's the Julian Pies. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a stop. It's halfway around, but yeah, it's just invigorating to get in those sessions and feel like, for me, I just feel alive when I complete something like that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I still have those big days but they're just different now, but it's like, I'll have Nicole drop me off somewhere and I'll, 40 miles from home on my feet, and I'm just with a pack and in my water filter, and I'll say, I'll see you later. And I come rolling up, before the sun sets, and it's been a great day. So
when you're out there, you're like, in, back country, and you've got your water filter and you got your backpack, and, there's that degree of like riding the edge, right? Like, you gotta scare yourself sometimes. Yeah. I mean, I don't ever put myself really in dangerous situations. I feel pretty skilled that I'm not putting myself in danger, but there's a degree of, I'm really out here. I mean, literally you're out there, and, in the winter, you're really out there sometimes. And, but in the summer, you can be 20, 30 miles from the next road, kind of in the middle of these mountain ranges. And, I've gotten kind of used to it where I really thrive out there, but the first few times I was like, whoa, how am I going to, this is a long one out here. And the first time you use that water filter in a stream you don't know, you're like, well, see how I wake up in the morning, and, but, yeah, there is definitely something to being, alive out there. I had a friend who, there was a term she used, the benighted, which is being out overnight unexpectedly. And so it's that benighted. And so once you have that happen, everything seems a little easier. Have you had that happen? Yeah, a little bit. A little bit? What is it? Well, I mean, I had it early on when I was on my bike one time. Kind of got lost, and 11 o'clock at night or so, making it back home.
But now we kind of plan it like if I'm going to do an overnight kind of a run where you start later in the day and then you finish the next morning and stuff like that. Lots of headlamps.
How does Nicole relate to these adventures? I mean, you guys have been together for so long, but how does she relate to these adventures, like with, your role now as a father? Has it shifted or changed from how she's relating to you from your perspective?
She doesn't have the same, she's very adventurous. Mm-hmm. She doesn't crave the same, like getting out there, getting lost and being out all day. But like, she's the first one to say, hey, let's go down this, this chute of, trees over here or skiing, or let's try this on the mountain bike. And even if it's a little bit above her skill level, she's the first one to say, let's do it. So, I mean, I could be out doing something and I'll be like, well, Nicole will do this. I'm going to go do this. Nicole will be like, let's go here. Okay, I'll go here. But she doesn't, I don't think she worries, about me. I think she sees how dedicated I am to Wilder, our daughter, and that I want to be around to help raise her for the rest of our lives. And I don't want that to end prematurely. So I'm not out there taking risks that aren't calculated. And, I feel I won't put myself in danger. I mean, there's always mishaps and there's always things that can go wrong, but I'm conservative in my endeavors.
Yeah. And worry is, it's praying for exactly what you don't want to have happen. Yep. So that's such a gift, because to have that energy of worry or fear doesn't serve anyone. It doesn't serve anyone.
Instead of saying be safe, she just always says have fun. Have fun out there. And she knows that that's the most important thing I can hear, because that's what I'm going out there for, is to have fun.
Yeah. I think almost living the way that you do with a sort of a closed network, or you have so far, because you enjoy being with yourself. You've sort of alienated yourself from that stuff of the people being like, you're going to go out, you just moved to Steamboat and you're going to go out there and do something like this. So you're almost removing that, their fears, right? Putting their fears onto you.
Yeah, probably. I'm definitely reaching out here in Steamboat because, not knowing everything and getting to know some of the local guys who are doing some things that I do, and I just need to learn where they're going. I scouted a lot in the summertime, but everything's different in the wintertime. So being my first full winter up here, you have to be a little more cautious. Luckily, it's a low snow year, so there's not much danger out there around here.
Yeah, but I would assume you've got some like legit resources. Like people up there are, they're venturing out. You're not the only one. Like you've got some good resources.
I think, now it's like, oh God, do I got to get a snowmobile? And it's like everybody around me has sleds. And I'm like, well, I guess that's added to the list. Snowmobile before snowblower. It's all about that. And Nicole's good about that. She's like, look, everybody wears the same clothes up here every day because we spend it all on toys.
Right. Yeah.
So
that's good. Have fun. And that's something that living in Boulder taught us. Like that was such a new concept to me. It was like, it doesn't matter what you do, just love your life, like live the life that you want. And that was such a shocker and certainly something that I was meant to hear, because that's what felt so right for me. It's just live the life that you love. Let's talk a little bit more about fitness and stuff. So do you have some like core things that are like your go-tos? I know you used to have the 1,000 sit-up situation which really seems like a lot. I mean, I can barely.
That lasted a long time. That was decades. And it went up above 1,000 occasionally, but I do some kind of strength work every day. As I've gotten older here. We started strength work when I was, seriously when I was in high school. When I was a high school swimmer, we, 3 times a week, 5 a.m., every swimmer was in the weight room, slamming weights around. And that's what kind of taught me how important it was from a strength and performance point of view. And then as I got into triathlon, it became strength and performance plus body management, like injury management, that kind of thing. I knew that all your, when you're moving forward, which triathlon is totally linear, it's always forward motion. And once those big muscles give out, it's the little muscles that take over. So I was, lifting and doing strength work to have those little muscles ready to go when the big muscles got too tired. So, and I did a lot of lateral work and balance work. And, that's what I do mostly now. I do some heavy strength work, but, not as much as I do balance work, one-legged stuff. And, I just think as I get older, that's the most vital stuff. That's more important for my physical health than the stuff I'm doing outside. Mental health, it's the stuff outside, but like physical health, being in the home gym here is probably the most important thing. So that's something that, if I'm on the road, I travel with stuff that I can get my strength work in.
What do you travel with? What are your go-tos?
I've got some bands, like all different weight bands and stuff like that. And that's pretty much all I need. Other than that, I'm waiting for somebody to make a, portable pull-up bar you can put on any wall or something like that to take with me, because pull-ups are like another huge thing in my life, almost to a detriment. It's become my sit-ups. Let's put it that way. Pull-ups.
I know a woman who knows how to develop a whole product line.
Yeah.
You might too.
Yeah.
Maybe you're supposed to come up with it.
I don't know. I do travel with these little it's like a mini hangboard things that you can attach to little things, so I can get my pull-ups in most places where I'm at. But it's fitness on the road. It's one of those things I'm dedicated to.
And you said, I can't remember where it was, but you were saying you would almost skip a run or whatever, or extra minutes on a run to get in your strength work.
Yeah, and I do believe that. I need to get outside every day, no matter what, for my mental health. But the strength work it's so, I don't want to be that elderly man who can't, stand up without wobbling. And, I get up and down off the floor 100 times a day because I think it's healthy. I go up and down the stairs as much as possible. And, I brush my teeth on one leg. So I'm, balancing it's with my eyes closed. If you can't do that, I think that stuff's so important. Both my parents passed away, and my mom was so frail before she even got sick that I think that traumatized me to the point where, like, I am not going to get frail. I am going to be strong and resilient, and I'm going to be able to balance on. I'm going to be able to go surfing and skiing and do everything I want to do till I'm 100 years old. And so that is, that's why I do this every day. Is, it's like if I miss a day of balance, I'm like, oh God, is it all going to go away? You gotta keep working on that stuff and make it harder and harder. So, you can balance, doing anything.
I'm so glad you're sharing this, Tim, and part of the dedicated life, because I feel what we come up with a lot, and I know you do a little bit of coaching, is like the athletes that they need the perfect membership plan, or they travel too much, they can't hit their gym in the basement on a regular schedule, and they come up with these, I would say, opportunities that challenge their entryway into just starting very small. So how do you meet people with that, besides sharing your story? Because I think that's going to be super powerful. Is what you're doing right now.
I'm pretty blunt with people. Like there's no excuse for not exercising. Yeah, I don't care if you say you don't have time. You got 12 kids. You don't have a free minute. You got 3 minutes. Or you give something up. Exercise is proven to make your life better, not only healthier, but just better. You're a better person when you exercise. I lots of my best friends, some of them are like, I hound them like, hey, you getting your workouts in? And, they have these lofty goals of doing something. And then they call me up for some kind of training plan. I'm like, all right, get out there. I was like, are you doing push-ups right now? You should be doing push-ups right now while you're talking to me. And, they're laughing, but I'm serious. I'm like, it starts now. It's like, it's not that hard. Get out of bed, do 10 push-ups, start your day that way. At least it sets you off on the right foot. It might lead to more, but Yeah, I don't have much sympathy for people who say they don't have time, because you make time for the important things in your life. And I think, if you walk around outside and see how many people are looking with their necks down, looking at their phones, I'm like, it's just such a waste of time. And I mean, that's going to lead to so many neck problems, by the way. It's like, but it's hard for me to have sympathy for that. And, I know it's been a part of my life, my whole life. So it's hard for people to make those changes. But if there's any want to make those changes, I mean, and I think people want it, if they're asking you questions, or if they're reading anything about it, deep down in them somewhere, they want to make a change in their life to be healthier. And so, yeah, I put it out there that it's like you need to just dedicate yourself to doing some exercise every day. You'll be a better person to everyone around you and to yourself.
Yeah, we totally agree with you on the whole time excuse thing. And as you were talking, it was coming to me, with more awareness, as I'm more aware of like what thoughts I'm indulging, and just paying attention. And I'm about a year behind you as far as years on this earth. And with age, we get wisdom. But this excuse of I don't have time, it's like everything. It's a muscle that's being flexed. I don't have time. And it's just a habit. And I think that if we can, be out, let's say, just get outside, step outside, walk away if we're feeling like we're hitting walls or we're entangled in something that we can't get out of, just walk outside and take a breath and have a perspective that's, start to flex a muscle of a perspective that's a little zoomed out and saying, oh, right, like I'm creating all of this frustration because I keep buying into the fact that I don't have time.
Yeah.
And one of the habits which definitely I think I've been pretty blunt about is the snooze button. And I think that you're going to have my back on the snooze button, because to me, it's just like, it's whatever. I don't even know how long it is, 6 minutes, 9 minutes. For me, it's just like waiting to be jarred again. Like, it just seems like such a punishment, the snooze button. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on snooze.
Well, that was one of my newsletters had a rule that was there is no snooze button. I mean, I don't even really need alarms. I think I'm so used. I've been getting up for 5 a.m. swim practice since I was 10 years old. And now I always thought, when I'm done with college, I'll never have to get up for a morning swim practice again. And then when I'm done with being a triathlete, I'll never get up. But I just keep getting up. And now it's like, I don't want to miss the sun coming up. It's gorgeous. And it starts your day. I mean, it's a whole new day. And I think half the world, more than half, I think 90% of the world is going through life pretty much asleep. And there's few of us out there that are awake, and we kind of live in this state of amazement, half the time. I mean, I walk outside and I'm like, I try and point out to Wilder, she's, bebopping around or she's on her iPad or something. I'm like, Wilder, come check out this sunset. It's gorgeous. And she does. And all of a sudden I see her face light up and she's like, wow, Dad, that's beautiful. And if I can pass that on where she's pointing that out to her friends, and, I like living in this state of just being in awe of what I'm seeing and everything. It's been a great little journey for myself.
And I'm sure from those readings that you've done and the studies that you've done from, these enlightened masters, which really, if you've done any kind of studying of the Tao, Lao Tzu is one of the mystics that is sharing this wisdom with us. Is, the more you're grateful, the more you're looking around in awe of what is just, something I say all the time is like, miracles are normal. They're normal. We're just not choosing to look at them. But the more we look at them, the more miracles I see everywhere.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, I'm brought to tears when I'm outside more often than I'd like to admit from what I'm seeing or what I'm feeling. You just come across these perfect moments. And if you're not open to even seeing these perfect moments or being a part of them, then you're never going to experience that. And I mean, it's a great way to live, and, I'm sure there's people are going to roll their eyes at all this, everything I'm saying, but, I walk around pretty happy.
I think that's the temperature gauge right there. Are you happy or not happy with what you do?
Well, and it's everybody deserves to be happy, but you've got to make it happen. You can't think it's just going to come to you. And that's, I think, the whole point of a dedicated life is I'm dedicated to living and being happy and trying to have, happy people around me and just, making that my life. Our time on this earth is short. I'm not going to deny that. And as I get older, it becomes more and more, I think you become more and more aware of that. But it's not frightening. It's not, I don't fear that. I'm embracing every day that goes by and every moment that I'm here.
I think, the end of our time here on Earth is really only scary if you're not living now.
I agree. Definitely. And I think that's a good reminder to people is like, to be in the moment, to enjoy what you're doing. I have lived by that rule of if I wake up more than a couple days in a row saying, what am I doing? Then you need to make some changes. And I had that when I was in college and I was like, what am I doing? Where is this leading? And, I pulled the trigger and made some changes. And, I've got one of my brothers right now who's complaining about things and he could make these changes. And I've said, dude, it's time, make these changes. And, if Nicole, if she came home from work and bitched about an employee more than twice, I was like, you got to get rid of them. You can't have that around. You've got to make, you've just got to be blunt and make these changes because it's just too short to have that kind of stress in your life that, causes you to overthink things.
Yeah, I think we're chronic overthinkers. And I love your belief of just, keep things super simple and easy. And if people are listening to this and they're like, oh, well, Tim's got the formula, he's done it. So, okay, so you're saying I need to do 1,000 push-ups and then I need to go move to Steamboat.
Damn right. 1,000 push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups every day.
Everything. But they're missing the point. The point is like, do something. And if you don't know what to do, start exploring what to do. And it's okay if you fail at first. Like you're giving people
scaring
permission.
Yourself is good.
Mm-hmm.
I watch my daughter crash on her mountain bike or crash skiing and I watch it. I'm like, oh, this is so good for her right now. Like crashing and banging herself and getting a scab. And, my instinct is to run over and hug her, but I'm like, all right, see how she deals with it. And I'm like, this is so good. It's a learning moment. And to scare yourself just makes you more resilient down the road. I mean, my brother and I used to go on mountain bike rides and wouldn't think it's a good ride unless we both totally got, almost crashed or scared. And I kind of live that way now a little bit where it's like, whew, I got a little scared. You get that little burst of adrenaline and it feeds your soul so well. So, scare yourself sometimes. It's important.
It's reminding me of this podcast we did, maybe like a year and a half ago with our, the guy that BJ and I trained with in yoga. And he talks about, he's been taking graduate level classes at Harvard University, and they're doing like a lot of study around anxiety and, yoga as a frontline defense, and not just yoga, like the gymnastics on the mat, but like the science of yoga, which is a sophisticated science of the mind. And he talks about in that, like this society of safetyism and how when we were growing up, like it was rough and tumble, like I was out, all I had was boys to play with. And my mother would literally lock the door and say, like, when I unlock the door, you can come in. And, we have, so some people might roll their eyes and look around and say, well, she doesn't understand because she doesn't have kids, and look at the world, it's so scary. But take a moment, take a breath and zoom out. And if we look, the world is reflecting our belief systems, and the world is reflecting what we believe about it. And so we have consumed ourselves with the fact that this world is not safe. And so we need to rush over and save people when really the only person we're here to save is ourselves. And we have to experience a little rough and tumble in life, because we are strong enough to overcome. We are strong enough for it. I just don't think that we know how powerful, and not even strength, but let's talk about power, like just powerful we are. Somebody could look at you and say, oh, well, he was world champion, I'm not that strong. Like but the essence of who you are, Tim, is the same as me. And, you've been the first to admit, like, you weren't a quote unquote naturally talented athlete, but you were dedicated and you put the time in and you put the work in, and you believed that eventually that would yield results, which it did over time.
I had so many like strikes against me going into triathlon. And I mean, I was a boy from Iowa, cornfields, there were no triathlon world champions. They were all California, Australia, that was, strike one against me. I didn't know, there were no coaches for me to go, I had to learn everything by failure and then not making that mistake again. But it was, and I didn't have the financial backing. A lot of people, it was like, ask Nicole when she met me what our place was like and how I lived, and it was sacrifice. And to me, I didn't use that word sacrifice because I was choosing it. So I didn't feel like I was giving anything up. I was like, this is the way it is. This is what I'm doing. And, if it pays off, it pays off, but I'm enjoying it right now. And, people can say whatever they want that, it's easy for me to look back and say, do this, do this, do this. But, nothing was handed to me. Absolutely nothing. I left home at 18, never went back, never got a penny from my parents after that. Left college with 8 credit hours left to pursue a dream that I had no right to pursue. I mean, it was just, it was a total dream. That was it. And it worked out simply because I committed to it. And I never let myself doubt that I was doing the right thing after that. But yeah, I mean, I think everybody needs a little kick in the pants sometime. I mean, part of the reason we moved to Steamboat was so my daughter could have a free range childhood. She wasn't getting that in Boulder. She couldn't run outside, disappear for 5 hours, and with us feeling safe. And every time we came to a mountain town, we saw kids her age running around, no parents in sight. And that's the way I grew up, and that's what I want. And I want her to, it scares me to death to think that someday she might want to move to a big city because I think it's so toxic. But, she might do that, but I'm going to make her a strong little, girl who can handle herself and enjoy the big wide world, like I do, but too many people live in fear of so much. And, I'm guilty of it as well at times. And so it's, you have to be able to step through that fear though, and just be like, hey, in most cases, it's not life or death. What's the worst, that can happen? And so it's, if you can think past that and just step through that door, I think most people would see some things open up to them that they never could even imagine.
Well, coming this far, Tim, in your life and where you are physically and mentally, you can't get here without a focus on what you're putting in your body, what you're fueling yourself with, and your commitment to the highest sources to help you perform. So what does your nutrition look like? And how important is it to you now to fuel yourself properly?
My nutrition has evolved over the years a lot. Through college, I, went through the vegetarian phase. And it was a lot of just basic, basic college life, a lot of rice, a lot of beans, stuff like that. I thought it was healthy. But I don't know, overall it wasn't that healthy. As an athlete, definitely moderation and everything was most important, but I don't think I could have gotten through the training and the racing I was doing without eating some meat during that time. And I didn't eat a lot. It was never a lot of meat, but I remember I had a system like 3 nights before an Ironman. I had steak and sweet potatoes, and then after that, no more meat and stuff. But, I never had a problem with, weight or anything like that. For me, it was always keeping weight on. I would have to wake myself up in the middle of the night to have a protein shake or something during heavy training so I wouldn't lose weight. So I looked at it as fuel mostly when I was competing professionally. It was, I think a lot of people put too much into their nutrition plan, even in races. I think it's gotten too scientific. Because I think Ironman, you have to adapt. Nothing goes to plan with your diet in Ironman. When the years I won, I was throwing up the whole time. I always hear people like, "Oh, I was throwing up. My race was ruined." I was like, "Well, I throw up every time I'm on the bike course." It's like, that means you're topped off. It means you're pretty good to go, And, I think it's just gotten so, it's almost like a built-in excuse for people. Instead of going out and training your body to eat a bunch of crap, which is basically what you're doing in an Ironman. If you do it properly, you're fueling yourself. And I know I've worked with Power Bar for years, still work with Power Bar, and it still works. Their science is still the science that works. And, every nutrition company out there, I think, it's become this, it's become like everything else. It has to be more complex to be more expensive, so more people buy it. And when you could probably get away with much less and much, if you just go out and you train your stomach to handle what's out there. I used to I'd say I needed to train my stomach to be the steel gut. Mm-hmm. And, I would finish a 6-hour bike ride pretty well fueled, and then I'd eat a giant peanut butter and jelly sandwich before I go run, just so I could get a big cramp and have to deal with it. It was like, okay, and it was the worst feeling in the world. You got that side stitch for 5-6 miles, but you're running through it and you're learning how to deal with it, because that's what's going to happen in a race. And I think a lot of people, that if that happened to them in a race, they'd give up. And it's the same, the nutrition side of things is gotten a little far-fetched. But getting back to your question about my, nutrition now, Nicole, a few years ago, did this experiment for a month. It was her New Year's resolution. She's like, for a month, I'm going to try a different diet and see how I feel. And I was like, all right, I'm in it. I'll do it with you. And the first one, I think we went gluten-free, and it was super easy. We were like, that's easy. And Boulder, gluten-free is like the way of life. And so, and I didn't really notice any difference. I missed my, real bread and stuff like that. And pizza sucked when it was gluten-free. But, and then we went to maybe vegetarian, and we were both pretty much vegetarian anyway. So that was easy. But then she went to vegan. And that one was like, first morning I woke up and I said, I can't have that tablespoon of cream in my coffee, and I was like, I'm out. I was studying for finals for my college, and I looked at my coffee, black. And I literally just put the little dollop of cream in it, but I said, I'm out. But she carried through and really has taken to the vegan side of things. And she calls herself a cheegan because she occasionally cheats. With a daughter, you pretty much have to cheat sometimes just to get her to eat stuff. So we've pretty much, I would say we're both cheegans. And we're 95% vegan. I still put that dollop of cream in my coffee. But if I eat meat, I just don't feel right anymore. I think it really fueled me well, but I also feel like I'm missing it sometimes. So it's this kind of balance. Like Wilder has started eating cheeseburgers for the first time in her life. That was first, she had never eaten meat until we moved to Steamboat. And I think one of her friends got a cheeseburger and she ate it and liked it. So I'll take a bite of her cheeseburger sometimes, and one bite tastes great, but then I don't have any more. But I don't look at anything as fuel anymore. I look at it as food. I enjoy it. I don't eat that much. From what I think, my body's so efficient. I've actually been trying to put on some weight, so I try to eat more, try and drink more, like some nutrition shakes to just keep that weight on me. But for the most part, moderation for me is everything. I don't overindulge in anything probably but exercise. So the nutrition side of things, I say keep it simple. I think there's things out there that can make you feel better, like the oolong tea. Go for it. It's good for you. But thinking one diet is gonna change your life. That's the big takeaway from all this. Is it's not. It doesn't have to be that hard. One diet, it may change things for a month, but in the big scheme of things, I think moderation is the real key takeaway.
Yeah, and creating a relationship with food where you're aware of what works for you. We've been vegan for a long time, but that's always when people come to us for nutrition counseling or whatever, like it's always about being mindful about, do you really love this one thing? Like, okay, so we're going to add some mindfulness practices to it. Like, how does it feel when it's in your mouth? How does it smell when you're cooking it? How does it feel when you're swallowing it? And then how do you feel 2 hours later? And starting to is what I think actually really true? And it's interesting what people discover. Sometimes they're like, yes, it is really true. Okay, great, keep doing it because that's working for you. But a lot of times they realize that just like everything, they've maybe flexed the muscle and it became a habit and it wasn't serving them. They didn't really understand that.
Yeah, relationship with food. I mean, that's the thing. Everybody's very different.
Yeah.
And so it's easy for me to sit back and say, just moderate, don't do anything. But I know people's relationships with food is complex and can be very tough on them. Yeah, I don't take it lightly, but for me, it's pretty easy.
Well, I love that you're sharing about it in A Dedicated Life, and I love that you're out of the cocoon. And I think that people are going to be hearing your voice a lot more because I'm sure there's going to be more podcasts coming after you to share about this. So keep doing it, keep opening, and do you kind of have like a vision for it, or you're just like in the moment?
I really don't. I'm going to see where, I wanted to get it out and get it under me. But I'm getting a lot of good feedback and, as where I had a couple of, I've been into photography for quite a while now since I stopped racing. And, I've printed up some of my photos kind of artistically on t-shirts and put the word dedicated on it. Mm-hmm. And I wear them and people see them and they definitely want them. So it could lead to something like that. Just, little things like that, because, that one word, dedicated, doesn't matter what you're dedicated to. It could be dedicated to anything, but be dedicated to something. I think that's kind of the whole point of it all, is just be dedicated to something and find what that word means to you. I mean, to me, it just means, to be in it, be in that moment with something in your life, whether it's your family or being outside or, your job even. Just be dedicated to it. And you will, if you enjoying it, it'll be, a much happier life for you.
Agreed.
How can, I also love, pull on that, I also love how you have people sign up to receive it versus just putting it out there to the masses. So how can people sign up to receive this newsletter?
It's funny. That was intentional, was to put it out there that the only way they're going to get it is if someone forwards it to them, and there's a subscribe at the bottom, or the only other spot you can find it is on my Instagram page. It's in my bio, and you can find the link there. My Instagram is just Tim DeBoom, and and that was I wanted it to grow very organically. And if it's cool to see that like my open percentage is like 95%, because it's like, if you're going to sign up for it, it means you want to read it. And it is getting good feedback in that I get lots of notes that are like, I sign up for lots of newsletter, but this is the only one I read, consistently. And I think it's just a little different than other newsletters. A lot of people just spit a bunch of information at you, and I've lived a very full, fun life, so I've got a lot of stories.
Yeah.
and a lot of them are good, and a lot of them are, just learning lessons along the way. And to pass those on, maybe somebody will get something out of it.
Oh, absolutely. I know we've already taken
I've already
away
started doing some
lots of things.
Crunches.
Yeah, get back.
All right.
Get back down on the floor.
Exactly. Look out.
All right. So you guys, you're going to either have to email us at yogitriathlete@gmail.com, and we'll forward you one of Tim's newsletters, or go check him out. Follow him on Instagram. Tim DeBoom, you're amazing. I'm so glad we had this conversation. You've been in the outskirts of our life for many, many years, as we've known your wife for a long time. And I think, that our paths will cross again. And
absolutely, you guys have to make your way out to Steamboat.
Thank you. Yes. I think we need a Steamboat fix. We love that place, and we've got some good friends that live there as well. So thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you guys. It's been great. Appreciate it.